All right. Errol Spence Jr. throws some heat at Austin Trout for some things Austin Trout said about steroids and boxing. And specifically, he says, Cap, you lying. Put a name on it. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So before we get into this video, I got to give a fair warning to everybody below the age of 30. I am not below the age of 30. As a result, my use of the word cap is going to sound labored, and it might be not used in the right way from time to time, because that is just not the way that my generation speaks. When we say lion, what we would say is, dog, you just a lion sacker-ish, right? But now cap is in the words. Cap is in, cap is now in the what's the word in the words of Dominic Brazil, in the Urban Dictionary. Since cap is in the Urban Dictionary, Errol Spence Jr. uses that word to describe Austin Trout and says, hey man, name names. So why would he say that? Well, I did a video. It's still up on the channel. I might have done it about a week ago. If I can remember to put the link here or here, more than likely would be here. If I can remember to do the link here, I will. If not, just go back and look at the Errol Spence Austin Trout video that I did. But in that video, I talked about the fact that Austin Trout, who is a former IBF 154-pound champion and a very, very good dude, man. I like Austin Trout. Don't take anything that I say in this video to be, any type of slight on Austin Trout, because I do not feel that way. I think especially with him winning his appeal against the WBO, where he's trying to get rid of corruption in boxing in the ranking system, and he's really pushing it with his own money, with great financial risk to himself. When a guy does that for the sport of boxing, look, man, I like Austin Trout. Austin Trout was on an interview with Blue Blood Sports TV, and they were talking about Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Big Baby Miller, and the conversation of steroids came up. So Austin Trout says in this conversation, without mentioning anybody by name, he says, well, boxing steroids is rampant in boxing, and he says he believes that everybody's on it, except myself. He believes it's that prevalent in boxing. And so he uses an example. He says, like, many of your favorite fighters are on them. And he says, look, man, there are people out with these puffy nipples. Like, how does your... Swear to God, man, I just really, really wish that there was something other than Errol Spence Jr.'s nipples that created this buzz, right? Or these accusations, because I hate saying the word, okay? I hate it. However, it's necessary to the story, so we plug on. Austin Trout says, there are people with puffy nipples. That shows me that your hormones are way out of balance. How does that happen? Right? And he uses that as an example of people that he believes are on performance-enhancing drugs and whose use of performance-enhancing drugs are being swept under the rug. Now, first and foremost, in defense of Austin Trout, the idea that people testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs is being swept under the rug is already a known fact, because we caught the BBBOC, the British Boxing Board of Control, and UK Anti-Doping and Matchroom Boxing sweeping Dillian White's top positive performance-enhancing drug test right under the rug, right? Where nobody knew about it until Thomas Hauser exposed it. And then once he exposed it, they had to address it. And since they had to address it, people got to see that there are scenarios in boxing where people are able to test positive for performance-enhancing drugs, but yet and still get right in the ring and fight. So you have, especially in the UK, because that's where it happened, especially in the UK, just because somebody got in the ring and they did not fail a performance-enhancing drug that you know of, does not mean that they did not pop dirty, right? So sweeping under the rug, as Austin Trout said, definitely exists. Now, Errol Spence Jr., however, must have caught wind of the conversation because he replied on his Twitter, cap. Remember? I told you I'm not going to use the word cap right. He said, cap, name names, right? Name names. If you're going to say that certain fighters are, tell me who you talking about, right? Which is, if you talking about somebody got puffy nipples and that's and that's your justification for saying fighters that you like are on, that many of you guys like are on performance enhancing drugs, let me know, right? Now, in my video that I did, I showed a picture of Errol Spence Jr. when he was 15 years old, just started fighting, in the sport of boxing. So, the chances of him being a habitual steroid abuser at the age of 15 when he just started is slim to none, and slim just left town. Okay. Ain't gonna happen. Did not happen. That's how his chest looked. And when he was earlier at that age, the picture that I showed when he was 15, that picture, the particular thing that we're looking at, which is called hard tissues, I'll refer to as hard tissue, because I told people people have told me that is the colloquial phrase used for that they had hard tissue in their chest that is not, God, no, that was, that takes years. I forgot my train of thought. Forgive me. Anyway, I showed the 15-year-old picture of Errol Spence Jr. when his chest already looked like that. And so the chances of him having that because of steroids is like slim to none. And his chest looks less like that now than it did when he was 14. So the idea that you would say Errol Spence Jr. was on performance enhancing drugs because of that picture, that doesn't hold much water, if any water at all. But Errol Spence Jr. rightfully says, hey man, if you're gonna throw my name, imply that that's the case with me, name names so then I can know how to address it. Now, I don't think that Errol Spence Jr. is the suing type of person, but if Austin Trout got out there and said, yeah, Errol Spence Jr. tested positive for performance enhancing drugs and it got swept under the rugs, and you can tell that is true because he has gynecomastia, whatever the name of it is, which is called hard tissues, and that's the reason why it is, and I know this to be true, right? Then, boom, defamation, right? Because he's saying something that he knows will affect that is not true, that he knows would affect the life of Errol Spence Jr. or his reputation. But then again, I guess he has to know that it is not true. Now, so if he says that without a doubt that it happened, he knows that he is telling a lie because he doesn't have any information to substantiate it. He would have to know that he is telling, at least if something is misleading, if not misleading is a straight up lie. I would suspect that, Errol Spence Jr. could push a defamation, a claim for defamation against him. But I don't think Errol Spence would do that. I think Errol Spence Jr. just going to front him out and say, hey man, if you're talking about me, say my name, right? But he's not going to say his name. He's going to hide behind that. Not hide behind it, but he's just going to, Austin Trout's not going to respond to that, and he shouldn't respond to that. I just think that was a bad example for Austin Trout to use. And Errol Spence Jr., is very smart, to call him out on it, man. But here's my thing. And this is what I said in the original video. There is enough proof. There are enough people that have tested positive for performance enhancing drugs and only got slaps on their wrists for Austin Trout to use those guys as an example because we know those things to be the case, versus using Errol Spence Jr.'s chest as an example, which is just, that's just an assumption that you're making, right? And it's something that if you saw it on a fighter, it's worth looking at or thinking about, right? You're like, oh, well, he's a fighter. There's a lot of fighters that are on performance enhancing drugs. The condition of his chest, has been known to be associated with the use of performance enhancing drugs. So it's reasonable to wonder whether or not Errol Spence Jr. is using performance enhancing drugs, right? It's reasonable to wonder it, right? But then you can see the picture when he's 15 and it's not there. And those thoughts based on that evidence should go away. But it's reasonable to assume it, right? Or to not to assume it, but to suspect it, right? It's reasonable to suspect it. Not reasonable to claim that it is true, however, which is why I say when you use these examples, you should just focus on the people that you already caught, like the example that I used with Dillian White and Oscar Rivas with the British Boxing Board of Control and the UK Anti-Doping Agency. They definitely swept that under the rug. Same thing you could use for the Nevada State Athletic. Another example you could use is the Nevada State Athletic Commission's 6-month suspension of Canelo Alvarez for the use of Combuterol. And the fact that after the test, the WBC raised the acceptable levels of Combuterol in your system. So now Canelo Alvarez can do exactly what he was doing before, and he won't get caught at all. So there will be no need for a suspension. And also the suspension for Las Vegas, which I forgot to expand on, was cut in half. It should have been a 2 year. I think, what was it? It could have been as much as 2 years, but then he wound up having it as 6 months. And I do believe that even the 6 months, they cut it down, or it got cut. What it should have been was a year, but they cut it down to six months, which wound up being what? One fight for Canelo Alvarez. But what Canelo Alvarez wound up doing is taking the Gennady Golovkin fight, right? And then immediately turning around and then taking the Rocky Fielding fight? Did he turn around and took the Rocky Fielding fight against a guy that, on a guaranteed contract from the Zone and wind up getting his money right back? So there's all those kind of examples that can be used. All those examples could be used to demonstrate Austin Trout's point better than using the Errol Spence Jr. Example. But I will be interested to see whether or not Austin Trout responds to Errol Spence Jr., whether he says, no, champ, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about this scenario or whatever. That would be good. Though I do have a heavy suspicion that Austin Trout was talking about Errol Spence Jr. because Errol Spence Jr. fits what he's saying to a T. But that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment sections. Make sure to share, like, subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you are, or if you're going to, make sure that you hit the bell icon and then hit the all notifications so you can get all of the content that we put out. And also thank you to everybody that supports on the Patreon, everybody that supports in the as channel members and in the Cash Apps of the live streams and the super chats in the live streams. Your guys' support of the channel is tremendous, and we wouldn't be here without you. So thank you guys very much. And with that, I'm out. Peace.